My name is Rachel Picken and I'm the Managing Director of MPAD. We are a creative communications agency based in Truro. We offer strategy, branding, public relations, digital and graphic design. I discovered Agile in 2012 when I was completing my diploma, which is a master's level qualification with the Chartered Institute of PR. And I needed to cover a research project, and I became quite interested in the planning process around PR campaigns. And also I'd heard a little bit about Agile through our involvement with Agile on the Beach. We were offering some graphic design services to the event. So I was interested to see how you could apply methodology for Agile to the PR process. Our experience had been that sometimes you can try really hard to plan PR activity in particular, but quite quickly things will change and it can all go wrong, or the plan will just completely be inappropriate. According to PR theory, 70% of PR activity should be planned, but with a 30% room for adapting to that. And so through my research project, I was interested to talk to other PR practitioners to find out about their approach to planning versus reacting. And I found some really interesting, completely different approaches, from internal press office teams who don't have time to plan for anything, to agency side where they have to plan with long lead publications and really concentrate on generating results for their clients. So there's a completely different approach to how you create your campaigns in PR. So that's how I started learning about it, and since then I've been looking at ways of implementing it, maybe not so much to PR and campaigns that we're running from a marketing perspective, but in particular just in the way that we run our business day to day. Probably the most important bit where Agile's really come into its own for MPAD is in our business development. We've experienced 10% growth this year. We had 20% growth last year, and we're gunning for another 20% growth this year. We've really had a think about how we approach new business development. We're obviously selling creative services, be that marketing support, creative digital campaigns, creative PR, or of course branding and graphic design. But what we're finding is it's quite easy for projects to not necessarily be profitable, because how do you value your time and how do you value projects and keep them moving in a particular way? One of the things that has been really beneficial to us is using part of the manifesto, which is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. In the past, we were more likely to go and visit a potential lead or new client and take some information and go back to the office and write a fairly detailed marketing report. There was no guarantee we'd actually get any business out of that, and sometimes it would sit in this place called New Business Land and never go anywhere. What we do now is we would much prefer to be able to offer a communications workshop, which means that we can go in, set up a workshop, we can work together on a paid piece of work that will then go on to generate a more detailed and focused report with really clearly defined objectives. A really easy tool for anyone to adopt, regardless of what industry you're in, is a Kanban board. We've got a couple running in our office. One is for our design projects coming in, and the other one is particularly for new business. So any lead we get gets put on a post-it note and put on the Kanban board, where it follows swim lanes of progress. So that might be lead in, conversational meeting, proposal out, and follow up, and then if you've won the contract or not. And it's just a really nice visual way to see how your projects are developing, and you can take photos and see how the board has progressed week on week. Main benefits to the business have been to streamline some of our processes and really improve profitability on projects and processes throughout the business. What we find is that in creative industries we're quite reliant on clients signing work off, or for projects to develop it's quite often reliant on the client doing something, and adopting Agile has been really helpful in moving projects along. What I love about Agile is how visual it is, and how it's about sort of standing up, chatting to your team and looking at your progress as a group. I also quite like the fact that other industries are completely able to just steal this idea from what's essentially a computer programming discipline and just use all the best bits for your own industry. When I started my research project in 2012, my tutor was talking about Agile to someone she met at a dinner party who was in computer programming, and this guy responded going, "Oh, everyone's adopting Agile now," as if it was a bad thing. But I just think it's just a really great way of picking and choosing the bits that you like. I don't actually follow the manifesto or principles to the letter, but I just pick and mix the bits that are really relevant to us, and it's possible for anyone to do that. I personally lead on new business development within the business, and I operate a sales pipeline, so I look after the sales pipeline, and it's really helpful to just see in this sort of short to medium term what's coming up in terms of new business development and what needs to be actioned sooner rather than later. And sometimes it's just not very scientific. Sometimes in terms of when I look at the leads that we've had in a year and we find out how many have converted, it's as simple as looking at how many post-it notes I've got that say converted and not converted, so I can like legitimately say we've converted 50% of the business. I think Agile's helpful for small businesses because if you have a growing team, it's just a really easy way and a straightforward way to start getting some process in place in terms of how you run your projects. And it's something that you can adopt quite early in the growth of your business as you grow larger. I sometimes say that I adopted Agile because of the fact that I am basically fitting a full-time job into part-time hours. I don't have time to faff about with really complicated project management systems. I just have to get on with it, and that's what's good about Agile is with you can just get on with the project rather than spending loads of time planning it out. You can just crack on, and that's why personally I like Agile. It feels brilliant to be running a business in Cornwall where we have these opportunities to explore and adopt Agile. I probably wouldn't even come across it if it wasn't for the Agile on the Beach conference. It's interesting because I don't know anyone else necessarily in my industry that's adopting it in the way that we are. So I feel like in some ways it's helped us create a real niche for the way that we do our work. If we hadn't adopted Agile at MPAD, I really feel like we wouldn't have achieved the growth that we have. We'd still probably be running processes that weren't necessarily profitable as we'd like them to be, and our projects wouldn't be running as effectively and as efficiently. It's really helped drive both turnover and profit, and at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do.